This week's guest is the man who brought Gerry Anderson to ITVX. He has 30 years' experience working within ITV, the BBC, and large commercial media companies in the UK. Beyond that, he's a big Anderson fan, with stories to tell of meeting the man himself and of being banned from watching Space 1999 as a child. Let's find out more. It's Craig Morris.
Hello. Hello, Craig. Welcome. Craig is a very long-time listener. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yeah. And I've been a big fan of all things Anderson most of my life. So, yeah. So when you get into a job, in my case in TV, that gets you closer to it, or I get to meet amazing people like you, it's brilliant. But yeah, it's throughout all my years, loved it on TV. In the 90s, I used to be on the radio, and I interviewed your dad a few times, and in fact, it's probably too early to say this maybe, but, you know, he did a sort of audience with Gerry Anderson, invited me and took me backstage, which was amazing to see everything and talk to him, and introduced me to his young son, Jamie. So I actually met you. You were probably about 9 or 10 or something, I don't know.
Wow.
But, yeah, so there was that, and that was a lovely connection. Used to know Simon Archer, who worked on one of the early biographies and fab books and things. So, yeah, it just kept coming back. And then, of course, many years later, after spending some time in TV, ended up involved in BritBox. And a big part of BritBox was classic British TV, which I love. And it sort of gave me an opportunity to reconnect again with the entire world, actually. So, yeah, all things Anderson, love it.
And to reconnect with me.
Yes, and to reconnect with you, absolutely. And except this time we could drink alcohol when we meet up, you know.
Yes, that would have been very strange at a nine-year-old having a beer with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's amazing. And now with me with less hair, but us doing some
Yes,
bits
I
and
think you
pieces.
did have a bit more hair. I don't know whether you would have ever noticed me at that moment because I was standing next to the DJ Pat Sharp, who was much more famous than me. So you might have been
That
more...
was then,
Yeah,
okay.
I was standing next to Pat Sharp, if that helps orientate you.
It absolutely does, because I got Pat Sharp's autograph that
There
day.
you go, yeah.
Which I've still got now in my little blue
Oh,
autograph
there you
book.
go. Yeah, you didn't ask for mine.
Sorry, Craig.
Yeah,
we'll get one afterwards. Anyway, now you've done all this stuff about how kind of ingrained you are in the world of Anderson. I want to get into what your role is at ITVX and a bit about ITVX afterwards. But we played a little game at the start of the interview.
Right, okay.
Called Super Identification. So I'm going to have you look at the screen.
Right.
You're going to watch a title sequence montage. And as you see them, you've got to very quickly call out as many as you possibly can. And we will write down your score on this lovely scorecard.
Yeah, that's quite hideous. Looking at that.
It's glorious. You're now officially a member of International Rescue.
Right.
But Craig, are you ready to play Super Identification?
Not really. But...
Well, you're doing it anyway, so here we go.
Twizzle?
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
are we
Okay,
there?
good start.
Yeah, good, okay. Supercar? No.
Let's see.
Four Feather Falls?
Very good.
Supercar? Yeah. Well, obviously Fireball XL5. Great theme. Stingray, obviously. Thunderbirds.
You got that wrong,
I'm
you'd be
sensing
fired.
an order. Yeah, exactly. Captain Scarlet, obviously. Joe 90, personal favourite of mine.
Of
I know
course.
one you hate. Well, Secret Service, Stanley Unwin.
He's doing well.
UFO, the best opening titles ever.
Amazing.
Protectors, I think, yeah. Space 1999.
This is an emergency.
And Terrorhawks.
Very good.
Oh, that wasn't Dick Spanner? Yeah, Dick Spanner. Space Precinct. And Lavender Castle?
Yeah.
It is, yeah, okay. Is that the new Captain Scarlet?
He's done very
Is
well.
that right? Yeah. I mean, what you didn't realise there, if any of my bosses are watching this and I didn't get them right, they'd be like, why is he looking after BritBox? So, had
I
to do
think
well.
that was pretty impressive.
Felt the pressure.
And I think I'm right in saying that you scored 17. That is a very, very good
right?
score.
17 out of 18.
Yeah.
I'd love to know the one I couldn't get, actually.
The one that you missed was Torchy, wasn't it? Was it Torchy?
Oh, Torchy the Battery Boy,
Yeah.
of course.
You know it now, but
Quite
17.
annoyed, but yeah, I'll
Great.
take 17,
That is an
honestly.
excellent score.
That's all right.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Well, as I say, bearing in mind I looked after BritBox in the UK, which had a lot of classic TV, it would be a bit of an embarrassing one to fluke. Wouldn't it?
And BritBox doesn't have Torchy, I don't believe. So
No, exactly. There you go. Yeah, because obviously we try and get all the rights we can for these shows, but there's still some evading us. But no doubt over time we'll track them down.
you're excused for Torchy anyway. That's great. So ITVX, we have international listeners and viewers who may not know about it, and we have domestic viewers who may not know ITVX. So can you tell me what ITVX is and what your role is there to give some people some context?
Yeah, I mean, look, ITVX is sort of ITV's VOD service, really. It used to be called ITV Hub. Hub was a bit more catch-up. What we've tried to do with ITVX is make it more of a streaming destination, so a place you'd actually think to go and watch shows. And that could be the latest shows that you might see on ITV. It could be shows that have never been on ITV or won't ever go on ITV because they're slightly different. I mean, obviously, VOD viewing audiences are much, much broader, and you can go for lots of different audiences there. But part of the reason behind ITVX is we can do so much more than just our linear TV channels. You know, you're a bit restricted by a TV schedule with those, so you can only fit in so many programs and appeal to so many audiences, where on a streaming service you can put loads and loads of stuff up there. I mean, we've got 17,000 hours available for free now on ITVX. That's all free with adverts. And then if you subscribe, you get an extra sort of 7,000 hours of content from BritBox, which we also run. And BritBox is our sort of home of classic British telly. So clearly a lot of this stuff started there when BritBox was around before ITVX came along. And then they asked me a couple of years ago to sort of oversee all editorial on ITVX after I'd done BritBox for a few years. So part of the plan was, let's bring BritBox in as part of the premium tier. So you pay this extra bit of money and you get everything without the ads, but you get BritBox. And there's a lot of great telly in there. By the way, the reason I loved BritBox is you can, for the first time, you could bring stuff from different broadcasters together. So in the case of BritBox, suddenly, and I don't think this had been done before, you had classic Doctor Who and Blake Seven and the Boxer Delights, all these great classic shows under the same roof as many of the brands we just saw, you know, the Gerry Anderson brands, and being able to put it all together because, you know, the fandom does overlap with lots of different franchises. So I loved this, and I could do it with drama at BritBox. I could do it with comedy, where you could take classic ITV comedy and put it alongside classic BBC comedy or whatever. So look, ITVX is there to be a streaming destination. It's got a lot of great ITV content on there, but we've expanded it. We have a lot of kind of US box sets. And so whether you like comedy, you know, 30 Rock, Community, Parks and Rec, we've got all of that there for free, or, you know, Vampire Diaries or The OC or One Tree Hill. But then what we're also trying to do is offer the best of what ITV's always done. And that's where Gerry Anderson comes in. I think it was probably between Gerry and Lou Gray, that amazing idea. I think Lou Gray did this with a lot of his classic shows, of filming them, putting them on film. Yeah. And here we are now, so many years later, and I don't think any of us could be more thankful, because you can restore that, you can make it HD, it can look absolutely amazing. It's one of the secrets to the success of this stuff, that you go back to a Thunderbirds, a Stingray, a Captain Scarlet, or you go back to The Prisoner, you know, or some of these other great live action shows like The Saint. They were shot in film. A lot of them are in colour, and all these years later we can restore them in a way that it's difficult to do with video, but I think all the advances in AI now are showing us that one day we'll probably be able to do a kind of HD restoration of an SD videotape thanks to AI. So I'm excited about all of that. So getting it all together was part one with BritBox, but and as you can probably tell, I'm a bit of a geek for classic British telly,
which we love.
Yeah, exactly. So it's playing to my strengths, really. So first BritBox, and even in ITVX, what's been great is stuff that started in BritBox as a sort of subscription service. Some of it, not all of it, but some of it we've now brought down, so it's available for free again. With adverts, and we'll grow that over time, obviously.
You've got an amazing collection of stuff on there, and also you mentioned restoring stuff from SD videotape to HD. You're already doing it. You did it with us with Space Precinct, of course.
Yeah, that was one of the first, actually, in a bit of a test. And I think that looks amazing. Really is amazing what you can do. But bearing in mind the technology is moving so fast, I've seen some other demos where, some of this imagery is pin sharp and looks so on the money. I think that's really going to aid us sort of going forward. So yeah, I love doing all this stuff. I love TV, but the day job, if you like, is overseeing all the editorial on ITVX and all of ITV streaming operations. So BritBox still comes under that. But yeah, so sort of setting up in the last year a living, breathing streaming service. There's about between 10 and 13 million people a month, depending on the month, using ITVX. So we get a lot of eyeballs. We're very lucky because we might have an FA Cup match or the World Cup or a Rugby World Cup. And these sort of things, Love Island, they bring enormous amounts of people in.
Yeah,
and then when they come in, they see all the other stuff we've got. So, and we're only just getting going. Next year, we're going to introduce more personalisation. So if you're a fan of Gerry Anderson content, for example, hopefully we can show you a lot more of that and maybe a little less Love Island if that's not your thing. So that's next year's sort of big focus, really. But yeah, so I'm very lucky because we commission new exclusives that often then end up going on to TV. We acquire a lot of content from the US, and we're still trying to keep, BritBox with having this regular drumbeat of really good classic British telly. And people keep saying to me, "But you're going to run out." And I'm like, "Have you ever seen what's in the TV archives?" We're always finding new stuff, or there's always shows we want to get on there, because a lot of people ask, "Why don't you have this or that?" And the honest truth is, we've only got so much space and so much money. And I look at it as a marathon, not a sprint, right? So every year we want to keep delivering new little gems. So it's not physically possible to put all of it up there right from the start, but don't assume just because it's not there now that it won't be coming in. And we can give it a moment and give it time. And there's still more Gerry Anderson we'd like to get on there. There's still a lot of classic comedy and drama we'd like to get on there. And as we do new deals and get rights sorted, then we'll sort it out. But yeah, so it's I'm a bit like a kid in a candy store, really. I'm very lucky to work on ITVX.
To play with all your classic favourites. Okay, well, that's great. And it's good to know there's more Anderson stuff that ITVX want. So,
yes.
You heard it here, Podsterons.
Well, we'd love, long term, I would love one day to have it sort of all there. But as you probably know, the rights are with different people, and not all deals are very straightforward. And a good example I can give you is we recently found a largely unseen classic ITV series, and we were able to get the deals done to put that onto the streaming service. But the biggest barrier we have, even if you find classic stuff that people haven't seen, is the rights.
Yeah,
because when these shows were made in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, no one envisaged that they'd be housed on a streaming service and available all the time. And so there were no agreements to cover it. So you are at the mercy of having to sort of go back retrospectively and try and do deals with writers and with actors. A good example is classic Doctor Who, just back on iPlayer, but the first ever story isn't there. It is on BritBox, different agreement, you see.
Of course.
And that's to do with one of the writers.
Yeah.
So on the first ever show there. So there's always these issues, and people can't quite understand it. But generally, if there's a problem, it's rights related.
Yeah, it's not you being willfully difficult, Craig.
No, I love the fact that people think I'd sit in an office and try and cancel these classic shows. And as I say, if they're not currently on there, it might be that we're just planning to give them a moment next year or the year after, and they're in our longer term plan. But yeah, I don't sit there chomping on a big cigar with my feet up on the desk going, what classic TV am I going to deny people today? It doesn't work like that. Honestly, if we can find it, do the deal and get it on there, we will.
Okay, well, that's good to know. And I know you try very hard on these things. So I'm going to come back to the place of kind of classic Anderson in modern entertainment and on ITVX specifically in a bit. But, you've kind of showed yourself up as a bit of an Ander nerd, if you will.
Yes, yeah.
So I think we should take a look at your very first Anderson memory. So
yes.
Let's have a look and you can tell us about it.
Brilliant.
For the last time, Logan, it's Rick Ping O'Shea. Got it?
Yeah, I got it, as you so quaintly put it.
Well, you loused it up twice during the last session.
I doubt if anyone was foolish enough to be tuned in.
Yeah, very funny. Now, how about breakfast? It's your turn.
All right, it should be ready.
How I ever got landed with a guy like you, I'll never know.
The feeling's mutual, I assure you.
Love it. Love it.
It's a good, an interesting choice, but why is that? Why does that stick out in your mind?
Well, yeah, it might look a bit random, but I think it genuinely is because it's my earliest Anderson memory. And I think it does sort of embody a lot of Thunderbirds, a lot of Gerry Anderson shows, and it's so fantastical. I would have watched that in a council estate in Rochdale, and it looked impossibly glamorous and amazing. And later on in life, I went on to be a radio DJ, and it started with that, and had a love of TV. But radio as well. And I should give a shout out actually to my Uncle John. My Uncle John Morris, because it's weird. He was actually 12 years younger than my dad, 12 years older than me. Nearest thing I had sort of to an older brother. And a lot of what he loved, and he grew up in the 60s, he sort of passed on to me as I was growing up in the 70s, 80s. So he absolutely adored Thunderbirds and Gerry Anderson. He was really into his music and the Beatles, and then that morphed into getting me into music in the 70s, 80s. And he also bought me a book on how sort of radio presenters do their shows. I think it was like Peter Powell's Book of Pop. And I could be wrong, but was Ricochet like on a record? Or on, I seem to remember it might have been on like a record that he might have had, and a mini album type thing. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, because I was trying to work out. I would have seen bits on the TV, but he introduced me to it all. He had a lot of the characters and the vehicles. But I remember the first one I remember watching was Ricochet, and I remember it really impacting me because it looked cool. He was a DJ. It was space. It was my first introduction into this world. I've got lots of Thunderbirds episodes, particularly I love, but I think there was something about that one that sort of stuck with me. And I could be wrong, but I think in the 80s when they started releasing them on video, it's possibly that Ricochet was in a compilation, because I had it, and I would have only been about 11 or 12, and so I sort of saw it when I was a bit younger. And it looked amazing. I think I heard it on a record, and then I think I had it on a video.
Okay.
And because, unlike now, you can just sit down and watch all of them whenever you wanted. You tend to watch the same few over and over, and so that would stick in my mind. Or Attack of the Alligators, or just Trapped in the Sky. They stick with you a little bit.
But it's fascinating that encouraged you to go into radio, because I mean we've obviously over the pod spoken to a lot of people who have been inspired to go into the sciences, into space, into film and TV because of the special effects or whatever. I think you might be our first who was inspired by a Thunderbird's character to go and work in radio.
Well, it is bizarre, isn't it? But I think the simple answer is I wasn't clever enough to do all the things you just said before, but I could play some records on the radio. But the other thing, as I got older, I've still loved that episode. It's one of the only episodes actually that I think was sort of influenced maybe by what was going on in the world, because it was during the time of the pirate radio stations, and there are sort of similarities there, and I love all of that. The fact that I think Thunderbirds, I think a lot of these shows, they're in these kind of fantastical worlds, and you're sort of sometimes looking for a bit of a connection. And other than doing this on pirate radio, or the one I found hilarious as I got older, I only found the films later on in life, but seeing the little puppet Cliff Richard and the Shadows in the film, but again, that's a bit of real life, almost, sort of seeping into that world, isn't it? A bit like when the Beatles popped up on Doctor Who. There's one or two of these moments in sort of television history. So as I got older, and of course I did a lot in radio. I suppose I hung on to it a bit because it was the Thunderbirds episode all set around a radio station. So love it.
Yeah, amazing. Well, congratulations on our being our first DJ inspired by
No worries.
Thunderbirds.
Yeah, and I bet no one ever talks about poor old Ricochet. It was like the penultimate episode. I think it was the last action-packed episode they did, and I think there's not a lot of love for him, actually.
Well done for fighting his corner, Craig. I'm sure he'll be very, very grateful. Now, I have here a delightful lunchbox, which I'm sure, as a regular listener and viewer you are familiar with. But within this, we've got lots of questions from viewers.
Yeah. This is the bit I was dreading. What's in the Space 99 box?
Well, there's lots. People have lots of questions for you. So would you like to pull one out at random? We'll have a couple of questions from Podsterons.
Okay, the Podsteron questions. This is scary. Are you going to read them? Do you want
No,
me to read
you've got to read them and answer them.
Right, okay. Right, this, well, the hilarious thing about this one is this isn't like me interviewing you, because you might know more about this than me. But I can answer half of this. It's about the network HD restorations.
Okay.
So Richard Goodborn, apparently, this has come from a thing. Are you planning on adding Network's HD restorations onto ITVX? And what other Anderson property would you like to give the HD treatment to?
Ooh.
So, I mean, the first thing I'd say is we would love to, but obviously, again, I talked earlier about rights and materials, and certain materials have been paid for by certain organisations. So I think it's fair to say we always want the best quality stuff. So we are actively trying to track down all of the restorations we can get. You hugely helped us track down, for example, the full screen Thunderbirds episodes, which we wanted to get on there in HD rather than the awful crops we all experienced. Even as a punter, I remember going out and getting that. And I know a lot of people didn't like those. I was kind of obsessive about trying to get it, but it was trying to put this patchwork of how you get hold of different people. So the short answer is yes, over time, as and when we can, we will. And then the HD treatment, and you were very involved in sort of Space Precinct and stuff. I mean, it's getting as good materials as you can. And we've got a brilliant, and I know they've spoken actually on the podcast, but our sort of ITV content delivery and remastering guys are amazing.
Yes, they are indeed,
and they're brilliant unsung heroes. Thanks to you and others, it's great that their profile's building because they've got the equipment, they're sitting on some amazing stuff, and it's an active conversation at the moment, which is the AI one, which is. The key for me now is once upon a time, I never thought we'd be able to make something that was SD HD. It had to be shot on film or shot as HD. And I'm now thinking, no, we might be able to. We might be able to go back over the archive and do that. It's going to take time, but yes. So the short answer is anything that's SD one day I'd love to see in HD.
Good answer. I think we should maybe do a collaboration on the Secret Service.
Oh,
the film
yes,
material's there,
yes,
but it's SD locked currently.
Oh,
so
okay, yes,
we should.
Yeah, we could look into that. I mean, because it's a curio, but it did very well, when we released it on BritBox.
Yeah.
And I find this in streaming a lot. If you find something. It's not always the most popular thing. It's the thing that a lot of people haven't seen in streaming. On a streaming service, you discover it. And because you're getting it all, you're not having to go and buy that one particular thing. You find quite a big audience for it because I find it quite a lovable curio, really, as a lot of people do. So, yeah, I would not rule that out. I'm sure there are conversations to be had, Jamie.
Let's chat offline.
He's doing a negotiation.
I'm not doing it. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Take another from the lunchbox.
Right, this is Morty Vicker. He says, "Hi, Craig." It's very polite. This podcast has had many of the famous people setting out their path in life because of Gerry Anderson's work. In the next few years, we have the 60th and 50th anniversaries of the most famous and well-loved shows of the Anderson universe. Now that they've come home to ITVX, I like that. They've come
that's
home.
nice, isn't it?
Do you think there could be room for commissioning one or two more special documentary shows looking at the wealth of influence Gerry's shows have had? Look, I mean, again, I'm very open to it. The way it works is I oversee the strategy of ITVX and say the kind of content mix that we need. And with acquisitions, it's a little easier because you see finished tape and you go, let's buy that, and that. We'll have these classic shows, and you negotiate and try and get them. When it comes to commissioning, it goes through the ITV commissioning teams. Because a lot of this stuff ends up on the TV as well. So I sort of give them a bit of a brief about what we're looking for. So again, not out of the question. I always think a big anniversary really helps.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we'd look into that. I think you do have to find something new. I mean, the reason I was so enthused about A Life Uncharted, the Gerry Anderson documentary we collaborated on, that was very exciting to me because it was a new take. It was a real focus on the man. It used new technology and it was telling a new story. And the only danger sometimes with commissioning a documentary is it just looks like all the other ones that
Just
are
a
out
retrospective,
there.
right?
Yeah, you have to have something new in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we could just go and license older documentaries and show those. So
Yeah.
that's all I'd say is we're always looking for a new angle, if you like.
Okay. Well, we'll get thinking about that.
Again, I
let's do
feel
it.
like you're turning this into a pitching meeting.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. We don't want to turn this into a business thing.
Okay, this is Ed Tipton. He said, whose arm do you need to twist to convince ITV to put out an uncropped Blu-ray of the episodes as they appear on ITVX? Any extras, special features would be a nice bonus. Okay.
Sorry, I did just say we weren't making this into a business thing, and now
It's gone straight back to business.
But the fans always ask.
Yeah,
so.
no, and it's a fair question. You know, look, ITV is an enormous organisation, and I sit within the media and entertainment division, which is the TV channels and streaming, that side of things. And then we've got our studios division that are separate, and we commission shows from them and we buy programs from them. But I'm not as involved in that, although I do talk to them. So all I can say to Ed is the next time I catch up with them, I'll certainly make it known that the fans are asking for it. Some of the recent restorations we've done some film restorations as well. We're doing in conjunction with ITV Studios because, you know, there could be future revenues, you know, Blu-ray or whatever from doing this. So we are working collaboratively. And in the spirit of that, my experience is once the masters are there, then studios will be a lot keener to use them, but then it will have to hit their next release cycle, I guess, of when they're planning to do something with a show. So I'll definitely, Ed, I'll happily raise it with them because I think we'd all like to see that. And I think, as I say, once the materials are made and there, it's much more likely to happen.
Yeah. That sounds very promising.
Yeah, well,
Fingers
absolutely.
crossed.
And by the way, it works both ways. They'll remaster stuff for Blu-ray, and then we're able to get those HD versions onto ITVX. So it does work well.
Yeah. Okay.
And
There
we
you
work
go, Ed.
together.
Great
So
question.
there you go. Yeah,
Let's
good
have a couple
question.
more, Craig.
Okay. There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, see, you're very popular.
Yeah, wow. Here we go. This is Steve Bushell. What's your favourite piece of Anderson merchandise? Oh, now this is a really good one because I always like the vehicles, you know, when you're growing up. But interestingly now, as I've got a bit older, you know, and you get your house or whatever, it all becomes about art. It all becomes about the stuff you have on the walls. And a little while ago, there was a beautiful Thunderbird 1 sort of... I think it was like a screen print, and that adorns the wall at home. And I do love that. Back to the vehicles, but instead of playing with them, it's now the art. And I think I love the art of a Stingray or a Thunderbirds or a Captain Scarlet. I was a big fan of the comics and stuff as well. You see it almost every day, every week in your life, don't you? I was in a market yesterday, and there was a big pile of Thunderbirds comics from the 90s, and I had a little look through them. May have bought one or two, but they're beautiful. You know, the drawings and the artwork that go alongside it, the sort of beautiful hand-drawn imagery you see in some of the title sequences. I love all that sort of stuff. So Anderson merchandise now is probably less about a figurine, or an eagle, or, you know, something very practical you can play with, although I do love that stuff and I do have some of that stuff. It's what you can hang on the wall and appreciate.
So the Thunderbird 1 screen print wins out.
Yes, it does.
For now.
It does. For now. That's this sort of years, but yeah,
Okay.
I love anything that's beautifully presented, the books, even the Blu-rays and the DVDs. I love it all. Shall I tell you the weirdest bit of
yes.
Anderson merchandise I ever got?
Please.
You know when you make a purchase online and then something turns up and you think, what was I thinking? I bought, in relatively early days of eBay sort of opened up the world, didn't it, to all kinds of stuff you can get.
To mad
before
purchases.
It. Yeah, and I tell you what the mad purchase was. It was a Thunderbird slot machine from Japan.
Oh, like a pachinko, is that what they're called?
Yes, yeah, pachinko, exactly.
Yeah.
And somebody must have bought and imported a load of them, and they were retailing quite cheaply. I thought it wasn't really a ton of money because it was amazing. It was noisy, and you probably see where this is going. Once you put one of these, I put it in, the kids had a little playroom, and they were Thunderbirds mad as well because my kids were young in this sort of late 90s, early noughties, so tail end of the revival, DVDs
timing.
coming out. Timing was perfect. Even the movie which I wasn't a fan of. They even loved that, you know. But so I had a sort of toy room with them. And I saw it online one day, and it wasn't a lot of money. But when it arrived, you can imagine an enormous, heavy slot machine, but little video, and it played Thunderbirds, and they loved it, and I loved it. But it was very noisy.
Yeah, they are.
And of course, then a few years later, when it started malfunctioning, how do you fix it? And what you end up with is basically a very heavy shell of a fruit machine. But that was the most bizarre bit of Anderson merchandise I think I ever acquired. But I did love it for a few years. It was just, you know, a couple of moves ago when it had just finally conked out, I just had to give up on it.
It's gone.
Sadly, so it's gone now. Yeah.
Oh, tragic.
Yeah. It was tragic, but it was fun. It was just not the not the most not the lightest bit of Anderson merchandise to take through a house move.
Okay, well, fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
Great, we've got one more
Okay.
before we wrap this one up. So make it a good one.
Okay, well, this is from Earl Black, and he says, please bring Gerry Anderson content to BritBox Australia. We have nothing here. Now, firstly, that's news to me that there's no Anderson stuff on BritBox Australia. The good news is I do talk to colleagues in BritBox International. It's separate, actually, to BritBox in the UK. BritBox in the UK is controlled by ITV. That's why it sits under ITVX. But internationally, it's a 50-50 venture with the BBC. So they are a separate company. But we do catch up from time to time. So I will start to lobby my colleagues at BritBox Australia to try and get some of this wonderful stuff on there.
Yeah.
I think they'd be mad not to.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have a chat with them.
So, yeah, Earl, I'll try my best.
Great. Okay, so that became quite businessy.
Yeah.
Let's free things up with
Yeah.
a very quick game
Right.
of Quickfire 5.
Okay.
Are you ready, Craig?
Yes. No, of course not.
Well, you're going to have to do it anyway.
Right,
So make
okay.
your choices. Your perfect day at work, monitoring for distress signals from Thunderbird 5, or patrolling the ocean with Stingray's World Aquanaut Security Patrol.
Deep sea still scares me. And Thunderbird 5, I always thought, you know, it's kind of cool, right? So, and it was one of my favourites, actually, in terms of craft. So Thunderbird 5.
So you're the
definitely.
John. Okay.
Well, don't call me that, because
Too late.
no one liked John.
No comment. Pick a guest for your next swanky dinner party. Thunderbird's Lady Penelope or Parker.
Oh, I mean, it is tough, but Lady Penelope, she was one of my first proper crushes growing up. Do you know what I mean? You know, she's, you know, beautiful, elegant, you know, so Lady Penelope probably. I'm not sure I'd want her smoking at the table, though.
I was going to say, and let's hope Mrs. Craig will forgive you that. Which would be more useful at work? Father Stanley Unwin's Minimizer Shrink Ray from the Secret Service or Thunderbird 2's tunnelling tool, the Mole? In ITV Towers, what's going to be more useful?
What would be probably the shrinking thing? But I love the mole and that sort of burrowing underground thing. So I mean, we're actually built on the site of the 1908 Olympics, where the ITV building is now. So maybe I could sort of burrow down there and find a bit of merchandise memorabilia from 1908 Olympics or something. That'd be fun.
Okay.
But no, I just because I want to get on the controls of the mole, I do the mole.
And so useful at ITV as well.
Yeah, a good way of burrowing out of awkward meetings as well.
There you go.
So,
There's
yeah.
the real use. You've had your wallet stolen. Who would you rather call for help? Dick Spanner, PI, or Space Precinct, Lieutenant Brogan?
Definitely Space Precinct. I mean, Dick Spanner, I'm not sure I'd trust him to do anything, really.
Bumbling fool.
Yes.
I mean Dick Spanner, obviously.
Yeah.
The agents from Spectrum are named after colours. Choose one of your own from the Dulux colour range. Are you Captain Milky Pale or Lieutenant Lemon Punch?
I mean, I'm not a fan of either of those. I'm not sure.
I'm afraid those are
I'm
the
not
only
sure
choices, Craig.
Milky was ever a sort of, you know, the name of a heartthrob TV character. What was the second one? Lemon
Punch.
I'll take Lemon Punch.
Okay, Lieutenant. Lemon Punch it is.
Thank you.
Craig, that was your Quickfire 5. You did extremely well. Great choices. The mole, I'm still not so sure if that's useful at work. So, I mean, you are I'm going to call you Mr. ITVX because you're giving them the kind of editorial direction
Yes.
and you are kind of setting the tone for what should be there. And therefore, we've got you to thank for all the Anderson content that is there and your colleagues, obviously, who've been so brilliant and supportive.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. There's a big team there, but you set a strategy. But I think both at BritBox and at ITVX, we've got an amazing acquisitions team, actually, who are very good when you go, we need a bit more of this or a bit more of that. And they're the people who go out, they do the deals, and they manage to pull all of this together, which is amazing. So, yeah, I don't want to take all the glory for it, but...
well, I'm giving you
you're
all
going to give
of
it.
it.
I'll walk around with a badge. Saying,
we'll get you a
Mr.
badge for that.
ITVX.
So last week we discussed how Ricochet inspired you to go into radio. So, I mean, could you give me your kind of comic book superhero origin story from radio to ITVX and a few of the kind of highlights along the way in a 1 to 2 minute version?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, here's the honest truth. I loved radio because I love music, and at the time, there was a lot of radio stations all over the country, so there was always one up the road, so it was sort of easier to get into radio. But TV was the ultimate love. Before radio, during radio, and I would get Broadcast Magazine to just see the overnights and see all the industry gossip. And during my radio years, I ended up doing TV continuity for ITV, for Anglia Television in the 90s. And that got me a bit closer, And so just bit by bit, my path was crossing more and more with TV. But I loved radio. I did 10 years on the radio, 10 years then in management. But I was coming up on 20 years, and I remember thinking, but do I just want to keep doing this, or do I try and go and scratch that TV itch? I'd love to work in TV. And I just got really lucky, actually. I started talking to somebody at the BBC just at the point when they were setting up their high definition TV channel. And they sort of needed somebody to come in and effectively sort of gather together all the HD programs that were being made for the different channels and put them into one HD channel called BBC HD. And I think I'd contacted them at just the right time because Christmas was coming, everybody was really busy, and it was a bit of an add-on. It was a bit of a, who's going to do BBC HD? Probably not many people watching it. But it got me in the door, and I hadn't been there long, and then they went, we want to do more on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. We need somebody embedded within the channels to advise what we do, and we would do deals with people like Mock the Week and the Jonathan Ross chat show at the time to clip up bits and put them out on the YouTube channel. So I was very much in the new bit of the BBC. I wasn't on the traditional linear channels to start with. Anyway, that led to doing a scheduling role on BBC Two for a year. Someone went on mat leave. And I love that because that got me into contact, if you like, with archive content on TV. This is years after they brought back Thunderbirds and a lot of the Gerry Anderson properties. They still had a budget to do classic TV, so I could finally get my hands on the BBC archive and bring some of it and put it on the TV. So, for example, they would play a bit of Dad's Army at Christmas, but I started showing it every Saturday night at 7:30. And I remember they let me do it as a trial and went, but I'm not sure, we'd do it more than a month. And I think they carried on for over 10 years. I was only there on BBC Two for that year. So there was always this thread of archive. So I loved radio, but running through it all was this kind of love of TV. And I think once I'd got my foot in the door, then they weren't getting rid of me. I wanted to be involved. So I did BBC Two. Then I went off to work, well, there was various companies own them, but for Channel 5 and Viacom and Paramount, and I launched a lot of their channels in the UK, and I used to oversee all the sort of scheduling and planning for Channel 5. So I did that for many years. And then I wanted to get into streaming, and BritBox was my route into streaming because I could bring all that knowledge of TV, commercial TV, and almost a bit of the radio spirit of, this is quite a small startup mentality, sort of coming up with creative ideas and bringing it to life with a small team, which wasn't very TV actually. So I probably pulled on my radio experience there. So that's how it went really, radio to TV, then into streaming via BritBox.
Amazing. And here we are. Now, the nice thing is, I just realised during that is you putting Dad's Army on then means you're responsible for actually some of the very limited time that I spent sitting with Dad watching TV.
Really?
Growing up, yeah.
Yes, yeah. That would be right, because it was loved by the BBC, but I still think they saw it as something to do on special occasions. And I remember saying to them when I was there was still quite a few of the cast alive, and it's like, I wonder whether it makes sense to get them all together. I think I'd read somewhere that Jonathan Ross was a bit of a super fan, and I remember suggesting when I was at the BBC, is it worth doing? And they did it. And as a fan growing up of all of these shows, to be able to suggest things and see these things come together, I felt a very similar thing with the Gerry Anderson doc, A Life Uncharted, to have any kind of part in something that celebrated Gerry and his legacy was really special to me, because, these are shows you sort of cling on to as you grow up, and they're quite, they go quite deep with you. So one of the lovely things about being a fan of TV, working in TV, is when you can bring it together like that. And yeah, Dad's Army was lovely, and I would see the cast in interviews saying, "Oh yeah, and it's back every Saturday night now." And it was quite simple. I had a lot of history shows on a Saturday night. I loved Dad's Army. And I was looking for a show that would just get a big audience through the door at the beginning of the evening. And so I suddenly thought, hang on, Dad's Army at 7:30 and Time Watch at 8. There's a sort of history element there. Should bring in an older upmarket audience against, whatever it is, Strictly. And yeah, it worked.
There you go.
Great.
Well, I would watch that with Dad, and lots of happy hours.
That's lovely
There's
to
a
know.
lovely full circleness there, which is great.
I love that.
Now, last week we looked at the moment that inspired you and your first Anderson memory, and that started that radio journey. This week, I think we should look at your favourite moment. So shall we watch the screen, then you can tell us all about it?
Yes, definitely.
Right, first of all, is there no other way out of this house?
There used to be one other way.
What?
The previous owner, Mr. Lopez, had a secret landing stage built for emergencies, with an underground passageway from the house.
Where is it then?
Mr. Lopez never told me. He told only one other, but he is now dead.
You mean Culp?
Yes, Culp.
Come on, we've got to get out of here.
I mean, come on. I mean, who else at that time was doing that on this type of TV shows? I mean, that's the Jurassic Park of its day.
It is,
look at that.
yeah.
And I think I love that scene because it sort of brings everything together. There was always a lot of ambition in Anderson. But parking the fact, and I think I only realised this when I was a lot older, that if they were to scale, they would be enormous, wouldn't they, those alligators? They were the size of a window.
They
and
would
stuff,
be,
but,
yes, absolutely vast.
Parking that one as a kid, when you're just at home watching that on TV, it's exciting and it's gripping. And it's the storytelling, it's the characters, the storytelling, but these amazing, ambitious visuals and things that the team did, and it was a team effort, I know. You look at that and go, as that lab is being smashed up and stuff,
yeah.
It's proper exciting TV, isn't it?
It is. I actually, my cheeks slightly ache from smiling at that because there is something really magical about it. And now in HD,
Yes.
seeing it like that, and even stuff like the scale of the grass versus the alligators.
Yes, yeah.
There's just so much detail in it.
Oh, it's just beautifully done.
Yeah.
And I think it sums up a lot of the care and attention that the teams used to put into these shows, particularly the design aesthetic and the set building. And as I say, everything, I've watched a lot of TV from that era, and it's quite basic in comparison. And thank God it was all shot on film as well, so we still get to see it, as you say, looking better than ever.
Yeah, no, it looks absolutely amazing. I mean, there's so many aspects to that which now wouldn't happen for a kids' show. I mean, let alone talking about a character being dead,
Yes,
which would be avoided now, and all the kind of violence and destruction that comes with that. do you think that's part of the reason that it kind of has been so timeless and survives on the streaming services? And do the shows like Thunderbirds and beyond have a place in a modern streaming landscape when there's so many thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of hours of content? Does it still have a place, and why people are watching it?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think it taps into that thing. There's not many shows that are aimed at a family audience or a kids audience translate, but I can think of a few. I think the Muppets do it, and I think Disney tapped into something that adults could watch and kids could watch. Doctor Who, and I'd say the Gerry Anderson stuff, that world. And I think it's so good you can watch it as an adult and appreciate it and love it. And we've all done this. You go back to other kids shows and they're kids shows. They don't really suit. I think it's quite timeless because it's just a sort of ripping good adventure. And that whole thing about people dying, I think there's not many shows that do that. Again, I saw it in the Gerry Anderson shows and I probably saw it in Doctor Who, but not really anywhere else. And that's an interesting point, actually. I mean, times change, and we've got Grange Hill on BritBox, and people often ask me, why do you put all the older kids stuff almost you put it into BritBox as an adult thing, and you don't put it, because we have kids content in ITVX, why don't you put it in the kids stuff? And it's like, because if you go back and rewatch it, what was suitable for kids 40 years ago, it's not suitable now. I mean, in Grange Hill, Alan, in the early days, he's puffing on a real cigarette around the back of the school. It's quite shocking to watch a kid smoking on a drama. So times change, and a lot of it wouldn't be suitable. I think these are timeless. I think very cleverly, Gerry, Sylvia, the whole production team, they set these adventures in a world, they made a very wise choice, which is that the future in 30, 40, 50 years' time is not all going to be silver and sliding doors. There's actually still going to be elements of buildings and real life in there as we know it today. They're not just going to bulldoze it all in a couple of decades. And so weirdly, it's quite timeless. There's a lot of references and images that still look all right. And I don't know, that maybe it was just fortuitous. A lot of this happened during the 60s, and that 60s style aesthetic has kind of lingered and carried on. Yeah. So you see people in an episode of one of these shows and you think, they could still probably dress like that now and they'd still fit in. So many other shows, put people in silly silver suits or whatever.
Yeah.
And, do you know what I mean? So there's a timeless nature to it, but I think the trick is real good family viewing is parents and kids watching something, and I think all of these shows have that.
Quite often 3-generation viewing, I think. So that's quite something, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely that. So it's exciting for me that they're reborn, and it's that it feels like every 20 or 30 years, like there was a moment in the 90s, and there's been another moment recently in streaming that these shows get reborn again.
Long may it continue. Craig, we've got some Podster questions for you in the mighty lunchbox.
In the lunchbox of doom.
No, not doom at all. Last week it was the lunchbox of potential negotiation.
Yes, there was a lot of business questions, which I'm sure you planted in there.
I promise. There's no planting going on here, I assure you.
Well, this is from Simpsons Clips.
Yes, indeed.
And it says, are you planning on having Lavender Castle on ITVX? Now, you're probably an expert in this, but when you try and track down the rights for all these shows, it's quite a patchwork, isn't it? And some are easier than others. And I think you probably told me this, but Lavender Castle is tied up with one of the trickiest rights holders you could get.
Yes, it's an interesting way to describe
It's DreamWorks, isn't it?
It is DreamWorks.
Which is a very big company. And so suddenly trying to get a very big company with millions of priorities to focus in on something like this is a little harder. So for rights reasons, I think that's not going to be possible anytime soon, is my gut
It's
feel.
a very tricky ask. I think the only way we could do that is if there was a bigger deal for 50, 100 titles out of DreamWorks, which I guess is probably not on your priorities list right now. No, and they are a company we do business with, but not on that scale. Yeah. So look, we'll always look for opportunities. Yeah. We'll always ask. So I'll definitely take that away, but that is harder to unlock, definitely, than some of the others. Yeah. Sorry, Simpsons Clips.
Sorry.
Let's pick another one.
Okay.
Move on from that slightly sad answer to a happier one, we hope.
is this happier? Well, this is from Gary Hodgkinson. And he said he was banned too from watching Space 99 as a youngster.
In which case, Craig, if he was banned too, what were you banned from watching Space 1999?
Well, Gary was banned as a youngster for being naughty, but only for a few episodes. So it sounds like it was more of a punishment. I was banned from watching it because this is the honest truth. So in the 80s, as I say, I used to live up near Manchester. Granada used to repeat Space 1999 on a Sunday lunchtime, which is perfect. Right? Until my parents decided we were going to do the whole, we're going to have a roast dinner and we're all going to sit together and it's family time. And I would have moaned and bleated because it started to creep into my Space 1999 watching time. And you know, some of those episodes are, that, you know, we were talking about how adult things can be.
Oh, yeah.
And there were on a couple of occasions, I was sort of forcing the family to watch it while we were eating, breaking the cardinal sin because we didn't let the TV. But you know, if the last 20 minutes overlapped, they probably would let me watch it. But they didn't like two things. I started picking up my food and going, I don't like the look of this, and they became convinced it was because I was seeing stuff on the TV that was putting me off my food, and they felt I was encroaching on family time. And I'll never forget the day they went, "You're not watching anymore. You know, you cannot watch it this family time." And I would have grumped about it for a bit. And so, yeah, there was a whole chunk of episodes of Space 1999 that I never saw for a long time until it sort of came around in home video and DVD. That was my ban. It was putting me off my food and interrupting Sunday lunch.
Well, that feels very unfair.
Yeah, rather than a punishment, it sounds like for Gary, it was like, that's your favourite TV show, you can't watch it.
You're a naughty boy.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you were banned. But you can watch it any time you like now.
Well, yeah, and it was the schedule at Granada's fault. I mean, you know, you don't schedule it across Sunday lunch, do
No,
you? You know,
foolish.
So, yeah, foolish. I wouldn't have done that.
But you can now watch it any time at ITVX.
Thank you.
you
Yes,
go.
that's the great thing about streaming, isn't it?
Let's have another one, Craig.
By the way, I think probably the other thing on that is I think your parents often don't know all the weird and wonderful sci-fi you watch, and probably they were watching it for the first time going, I don't want to watch this while I'm eating my lunch. And,
Yeah,
you know,
particularly
what does he
Dragon's
watch?
Domain with the microwave corpses.
Yeah, it might have been that episode. And I think back then they didn't edit them like you probably do today for daytime.
less censoring.
So, yeah. Anyway, Alex Pass has sent this one
Big
in.
Al.
And it says, you can take any Anderson vehicle for a test drive, which one and why? And I think I've answered this previous, actually, because I love them all. I just love the idea of
Yeah, you're
bringing it
consistent.
and sort of, you know, very simplistic. Down you go, up you come, and who knows where you come up. So that and also, you know, probably any one of the Thunderbird craft that would take you into space. Although it's not a vehicle, and I know you're not the biggest fan of this franchise, but I loved Joe 90 and the. You know, it's not a vehicle, but the contraption that comes
big
around
rat.
you. You know, the rat. Yes.
You want to go in the big rat?
Yeah, I'd love
Okay.
to go in that. Who wouldn't? And, you know, it's sort of, well, yeah, I think you're in a minority there. It's just like, you know, it's great fun.
I'm not sure I agree, but okay, fine. I got this image of you bursting up through the lobby of ITV towers in the mole
it.
and climbing out.
Yeah,
And people
all
looking
the
at
satellite
devastation.
dishes could keel outwards just like the trees.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, it'd be perfect.
Okay, fine. I'll organise that for my next visit. You've got
thank
two
you.
more questions.
Right. Penultimate one. This is from Mark Perkins. He says, are there any plans to make the HD upscale version of Space Precinct commercially available? And I can confidently say Jamie will answer that question because I'm in no way involved in any commercial releases.
Well, I guess there's two aspects to that. One is, will it make the transition from ITVX Premium to ITVX Free?
Yes. Yeah.
And then will that happen at some point? I mean, that's up to you, not me, or up to your teams.
It's highly likely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we like to put stuff as a sort of treat, as a reward almost for people watching BritBox for a few years,
Yeah.
and then we have a discussion about actually now is there a wider audience? But and as I said, back to that earlier point of you have thousands and thousands of hours of content. There's an optimum amount to have. So
Yeah.
if you bring something down, what do you take off? So I could see it at some point, but probably not in the next year or two. On ITVX.
Fine.
Over
And
to
as
you.
far as a commercial release goes more widely, it's absolutely something we're looking into.
Yeah.
There you go.
And
How's
why
that?
not? Yeah.
Perfect. Last one. I mean, there's no surprises now.
No, there's one in the bottom of the lunchbox from Paul Hyder.
Paul Hyder in China.
Oh, right,
Yes,
okay.
it's very international, this podcast, you know.
Ah, yeah. Well, he's asking, what is it about ITVX that makes it a great home for Anderson shows? And I may have partially answered this before. I think it's two things. One is we've got a brand called BritBox, which celebrates the best of British TV. And Anderson shows absolutely embody the best of British TV. So why not? I think it also helps that when it comes to the free part of ITVX, the bit which has ads in that you don't have to pay for, the older stuff we host there needs to make a bit of sense, so it tends to be ITV brands. So it's a legacy thing, right? This is bringing the best of what ITV has done in the past, be it Brideshead Revisited, or Rising Damp, or A Touch of Frost, or Prime Suspect, or Cracker, or all of those classic shows. It's brilliant to put it in there. It's great to have it in the mix. Because so many shows in the 60s were shot on videotape, black and white often, you know, I think if you're a true fan, and I do, you go back and watch them. But if you want to get them to a wider audience, it is a little harder. So having stuff that's in HD, either black and white or colour, really helps because, you know, you want to be a sort of premium streaming service. So I think we're a great home for the shows. I think sci-fi is a very big genre if you run a streaming service. So to have the gift of these shows is huge. And look, as I said earlier, I think for me, we've just got to pace ourselves. We don't want to release it all in one go. I know people would love that, but there are lots of practical considerations. But over time, we'd like to every year keep finding a new little treat, like Space Precinct on BritBox in HD. You know, every year find something new to go, oh, now here's something new to come back for. And while you're here, you can enjoy all these other shows as well.
It is the perfect home, and we're very grateful that all the Anderson stuff has such a nice home.
I absolutely love it. It's one of those areas where what you love and something that's been with you through your life sort of intersects with your job, and that's amazing. It's a gift. But yeah, no, and just to reassure everybody, we don't take this lightly. We care about these shows, and we want them to look better and better, and we want to add to them, build them out, because it's a brilliant slice of classic British telly. So we've got to look after it and sort of hand it on to the future generations.
Please keep it up. Now, Craig, there is a very special game which we're going to play just very shortly.
Yeah.
The final iteration of, I believe, Cute, Mute, or Recruit, which I will give you some context for shortly.
By the final one, do you mean we're about to kill it?
Yes, you are the executioner, essentially.
Yes, kiss of death.
But at the very start of our first chat last week, you mentioned meeting a very young me and meeting Dad. We sort of didn't really get into that meeting in particular. Just wanted a bit more context for it to round off this sort of start to finish discussion.
Honestly, Gerry was absolutely lovely, actually, to me. I was a young sort of jobbing DJ, and on more than one occasion, he would sometimes say, "Do you want me to do something on the show?" And so he came on several times, actually, and he was really nice guy. He was. I think he'd got to that stage where he was at peace with a lot of that legacy.
Yes.
So I think I'm not sure, but I think he was finally comfortable talking about a lot of it for the first time. He was very mischievous. He would always throw, in the interviews, he would always throw something in to try and throw me. I think most famously when he was talking about how he managed to get the effect of Robert the Robot. And which he did, of course, and innocent me on a networked Saturday morning show with many kids listening. He told the story of how the ideal implement he found to press against his throat to get that voice, and I had my head in my hands. He did it on purpose, I think. You could see what he was doing. So I loved that. There was always a good bit of banter. He always brought it to life, and he was very generous with his time. And as I say, Simon Archer had introduced us. So he was great when he came on the show, and he told all the brilliant anecdotes that we know and love, you know, his hatred of John, and that's why he stuck him in the space station and all of that. Now, I think people forget now, we take the internet for granted, but back in the early 90s, you were clinging on to a book or a magazine article or a radio interview to find out these nuggets. Now, I think everybody knows a lot of this stuff because it will be sitting there on a Wikipedia page somewhere. But no, and the other thing I was very impressed about Gerry was his drive. Every time you met him, he was talking about a new project. There was always the next thing, always that's what got him out of bed in the morning. But as I say, I think he certainly said to me that for a time he sort of grew to resent, and we all know this, obviously, what he did in the 60s, because he really wanted to be making live action and he got a bit boxed in. But there was always projects on the go, and, a lot of them eventually came to fruition, but it would take years, But that's what a great producer does. They don't give up. They just keep chipping away. As I say, we had some great times. I felt incredibly fortunate to be invited and to go backstage, albeit everybody was more interested in Pat Sharp than me, clearly. Legendary 80s DJ Pat Sharp. But I just couldn't believe I got to be there to see some of the original, marionettes and stuff. It was amazing.
There you go. And now here we are. All these years later, and it comes full circle, because that's how old I am. I mean, that would have been like 30 odd years ago. So, scary. Amazing. If you could have told young me and younger you then that this would be what we were doing now. Anyway,
even better.
There's so much lovely full circle stuff that we talked about, and including Dad's Army, and that allowed me and Dad to sit and watch stuff together, and how it's affected your life. It feels only right that we should end on a real high with a game of cute, mute, or recruit.
Yeah, what a great way to sort of ruin that lovely poignant chat we were just having.
It was also beautiful. I think we can thank Richard James for creating this game.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not aware, it's probably for the best, but each week until now, the previous week's guest has drawn 3 random cards from a selection of characters, and you are now tasked with building your very own, or our very own, international rescue type agency. So you can you get these 3 choices. You can only recruit one.
Right.
You're going to say that one is cute. I mean, this is Richard's game, and one you're going to mute because you couldn't bear any time with them at all.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
And you're about to tell me...
Well, I'm going to give you the 3 cards, and you can tell us who's here. I think you'll recognise all of them.
God,
so here are your choices, courtesy of Nicholas Young. Who have you got, Craig?
I've got Mr. Four Feather Falls.
Tex Tucker from Four Feather Falls.
Yes, exactly. Everybody's favourite, Parker Butler. Interesting one. And UFO guy.
Ed Straker.
Commander
Ed Straker.
Yeah, Commander Ed Straker. This is quite tough. Well, actually, there's an easy mute in these.
Is there?
Easy mute.
Who are you muting?
Tex Tucker.
Goodbye, Tex.
Tex Tucker. Dear. I'm not a big Westerns fan, so I've never quite liked that. So, and Four Feather Falls is fine for what it is. I have watched some, but no, sorry, Tex. I'm not big into the cowboy scene. So.
Wow. So that's the voice of entertainment legend Nicholas Parsons.
I know.
You've chosen to mute.
I know.
Ouch. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, but that one's going.
Right.
So that's down.
It is Parker or Ed Straker. Who are you going to say is cute, and who are you going to recruit for your special organisation?
I think you've made it very easy for me. The cute and recruit.
It's Nicholas Young that's made it easy for you. I've had nothing to do with this at all. I'm recusing myself from any involvement with this.
I think we've got to say cute.
Really?
Yeah, we've got to say cute.
I'm shocked.
But that's partly because I don't know whether I'd ever describe Parker as cute. He's
cute in a sort of quirky, charming way.
No. The thing I loved about UFO was the look, the feel, the costumes, proper space age madness, which I love, the multicolored hair. And again, so I looked at that show and I felt everybody was quite good looking, and just, so
okay.
So there's a cuteness there, definitely a type, I think.
Very
so,
good.
Yeah, I go for that. But
and
no,
therefore,
if I was going to build something around somebody and build it out into something and start something up, I'd want Parker at my side. This guy with his background. I feel, as we saw over many, many episodes, he's a man of hidden depths, murky depths as well, I think.
Yes.
You know, but I like that. I think you need a bit of rough and tumble. You need someone who can crack the code, or, you know, he could probably take someone into an alleyway and, you know, look after himself with his... in terms of, I think he could get into a bit of a fight situ and he'd look after you. I think, you know.
I mean, I would say Straker would too, but it's interesting because there's a lot about your psychology, Craig, that you would choose an ex-convict over someone previously in the US Air Force and now head of a secret
Ex-convict,
organisation.
you can do, it's Pretty Boy versus the Brawn, and I think, you know, I think I'd want Parker in my corner.
Well, what a bombshell to end Cute Mutant Recruit on. I'm so glad that that's the way we've ended it. Goodness me. Craig, to redeem yourself,
yes.
Is there anything else that you would like to add about ITVX or what people can watch? Is Uncharted coming up on X, I believe? I'm sure.
Yes, yeah. It's in plan. It's like one of the things I'm keen to do is look for a moment, you know, like a Gerry Anderson day, or if a show has a particular day. But yes, I'm not sure how widely known that is, but Uncharted will definitely be coming on to the free tier of ITVX very soon, actually. And yeah, ITVX is there to just go in and watch what you want to watch. And as I say, over the next year, I'm quite ambitious that we'll make it more personalised to your taste. But particularly if you go for the premium subscription, you do get a lot of additional shows, a lot of great sci-fi shows. So I'll always be the salesperson for the whole thing. But what I like most about it is we can put all this stuff out there and it can find whole new audiences. We've just launched, you can put lots of channels up within ITVX, and we've just launched a Blast from the Past channel, and that's showing things like, you know, Captain Scarlet and stuff. So we're finding lots of places to put this. It's there, all of it's there, you know, to watch in its entirety. But we've got channels if you don't want to pick, and you'll see that sandwiched in between Rhubarb and Custard and other classics. So yeah, so look, there's a lot there to discover, but it's got to be each to their own. But as you can probably tell, I just feel incredibly privileged to be able to work there and pull it all together. I've got a brilliant team who work very hard on curating the stuff and getting it in front of people. But all I'd say to people is go and have a nose around. There's some quite interesting stuff there that you might not have spotted before.
Brilliant, Craig. Well, it's all in very good hands, and we're very grateful, all Ander fans are, for everything you're doing there, so please keep it up. Last week we talked about where to find ITVX, but what about people want to find you? Can they follow you on LinkedIn, or are you on Twitter? Or X?
I'm not on many platforms, but LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Is always a place you can look up sort of what I'm up to. But yeah, you know, obviously, what I love is actually you've got a great connection here with the people who love the world of Gerry Anderson. So as they've done today, what I'd say is never be shy of asking the questions to the team at Anderson Entertainment, and you guys are very good at getting it across to us. And no idea's a bad idea. I'm always looking for new ideas, new thoughts of what we could do to keep things fresh. As I say, the only thing with the streaming service is you don't want things to go stale. You don't just want to put them there. So you always need to release new stuff. So that's why we keep our powder dry and hold shows back, because, you know, what exciting things could we do next year and the year after? So yeah, if anybody ever has any ideas, I'm always open to them.
Amazing. Craig, you've been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank
you, Craig Morris.
Thank you.